Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Children's Services Council training video on how to enter a budget in SAMIS. Before you enter the budget, here are 3 things to consider. 1. Has your budget been approved by a CSC Program Services Manager? 2. Has the budget workflow been established in SAMIS, meaning the creator, the submitter, and the reviewers? And 3. Will you be creating new positions today, or do the positions already exist in the SAMIS system? If your agency is currently funded by CSC, you can view your position library by going to the Positions tab in the main navigation menu. From the drop-down, select Search. The positions listed are unique to your agency. There are 2 different documents being used in today's presentation. The CSC Budget Entry Guidelines, a 24-page handout found in PDF format, and the second is a sample budget in Excel format. It is recommended that you have both of these documents available to reference as we go through this training. Much of your success will come from note-taking, so I highly encourage you to take good notes to guide you when you go on your own. At this point, SAMIS should not be opened, nor should you attempt to enter the budget until you watch the entire presentation. To enter a budget successfully, a sequence of steps must be followed. Let's get started. Please turn to page 23, the glossary of terms. Fiscal year. The CSC fiscal year is a 12-month period that runs from October 1st each year through September 30th of the following year. For example, fiscal year 2021 is the period that covers October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. The budget period is usually similar to the fiscal year. Our contract period, this is the term of the duration of the CSC program agreement and also normally runs parallel to the fiscal year. Your contract number is a number assigned by CSC to the contract. This number changes at the start of a new RFP period. Position. A position is a job held by the employee within the agency. Position title. This is the title of the job held by the staff. For example, program coordinator, youth counselor, or administrative assistant. Position start date. This is the start date of the fiscal year for which the position is created in SAMIS. For example, we will use 10/1/2020 for all the positions created for fiscal year 2021 and 10/1/2021 for positions created in fiscal year 21-22 and so on. Position end date. This field is to be left blank. At this time, we are creating positions are building our budget, not including end dates. Support start date. This is the date the position begins to support the CSC program, and it's usually the same date as the contract start date. Support end date. This is the date in which the CSC program ends. At this time, we'll be leaving this blank because we're not ending any support. Assignment start date. This is the date the individual staff member is assigned to the position in the program. Assignment end date. Again, we'll be leaving this field blank because we're not ending assignments. Paraprofessional staff. A paraprofessional staff is a non-degreed staff member, which normally an associate's degree or lower. Professional staff normally holds a professional license and has a bachelor's degree or higher. Full-time staff. This is an employee who is considered full-time to your agency and usually works 40 hours or more per week. Part-time staff, an employee who is part-time to your agency and normally works 30 hours or less per week. These terms come into play from the scope of work in your staffing chart. Now that we have established some common language between us, let's turn to page 2 of the Budget Entry Guidelines. Live on my screen is the SAMIS Access homepage. The SAMIS main navigation menu is located here in the upper left-hand corner. It provides access to the modules found in Nexus. We mostly will use the sub-navigation menu, which allows us to navigate through the different SAMIS modules. Each one of the sub-navigation tabs offers a variety of reports or functions related to that tab. In the upper right-hand corner, you should see your name and profile. Most important, it is here where you officially log out of SAMIS. The budget entry is a 4-step process. I highlight the importance of following the sequence of steps as you build the budget entry. If you create a budget and you do not follow the sequence of steps, you run the risk of having to delete it due to improper setup. Let's go through the steps on page 2 of the handout. Step 1, create the positions, starting on page 2. Step 2, defining fringe benefits, and that starts on page 9. Activating the funders, which is what we call the match requirement, whether in kind or cash, starts on page 10. And lastly, we will create the budget shell and enter an approved budget in SAMIS. That starts on page 11 of the guidelines. Step 1, creating the positions, page 2 of the handout. Please recall that if you are already funded by CSE, most likely your agency has a position library from which you can select positions from. If this program is currently funded by CSE, please begin by analyzing if any new positions will need to be created. If no new positions are needed, then you may proceed to step 2 on page 9 of the budget entry process. We will get started by creating the first position in our training budget form, the Senior Program Manager. From the Programs tab, select Search. From the listing below, click on View in light blue to select the program for which the budget will be entered. You are now in your program splash page. Please begin by ensuring that you are in the correct fiscal year for which you will be recording the budget. Also review that your contract number agrees with the one that has been provided by your programs manager. From the drop-down menu located on the left-hand side of the sub-navigation ribbon, drop down to Positions. If your program is currently funded by CSE, you will see all past and present positions listed here. If you have not been funded by CSE, you will not find any positions here, but that will not be the case after we build our budget today. Underneath the contract number, please click on the New Position button. This is the new entry screen in which you will create positions for your agency's position library. Let's take a look and first review the different sections in this page. It has 3 separate entry fields to record. In the first field, we are creating positions for the agency. In this second field, we are assigning the program for which this particular position will support. Lastly, on the bottom, we will assign the staff member that fills that position, if the staff member is known. Note that the form has items that contain an asterisk. These fields are required to be filled out in SAMIS in order for the position to be saved. Note how the position end date does not contain an asterisk because we are creating positions, and until this position is closed out, we will not be recording an end date. From the drop-down menu, select your agency. Enter the position title just as it appears on your approved budget and staffing chart. Please refrain from using all caps. Position titles must be capitalized. The category field is noted from the Scope of Work staffing chart. Please recall that paraprofessionals have an associate's degree or lower, and professionals have a bachelor's degree or higher. The expected number of hours for a full-time staff member defaults to a 40-hour week. We record our start date of October 1st, 2020. The end date will be leaving blank because we're not ending positions, we're actually building positions. In fact, for the most part, we are never going to terminate positions. All of these past positions are actually attached to historical records of the programs CSC has funded in the past 18 years. We ask that you never end date a position. Next, we will assign the program for which the position will support. Drop down to select the program. Enter the support start date, which also aligns with the contract start date of 10/1/2020. No support end date because we're not ending the support of this position. Program allocation. Please note that the senior program manager in our sample budget is a full-time staff member to the agency, but is only 70% allocated to this program. For those staff members partially allocated to your program, this is where you will record the allocation. In this case, we will enter 70. No percent sign is needed. The field is formatted in percentage mode. Finally, we will record the staff member's name if the staff member who fulfills the position is known at this time. Because we assume that you are building the budget for the first time, let's go ahead and record your staff member into your staff member library. Please note under the staff member window, there is a green plus new staff member button. Once clicked, you can record the staff member who will be fulfilling this position. Our new senior program manager is Mr. Elon Rusk. Again, only the fields with an asterisk are required to be filled out. We recommend that if you do not know the answers to the demographics in front of you, please leave the fields blank. Once you have saved the staff member, SAMIS automatically takes you back to the entry page. Now that the staff member is recorded under your agency, you are able to assign the staff member to the position. You do that by clicking in the empty staff field and slowly enter the first 3 letters of the name, E-L-A. Just by entering the first 3 letters of the first name, you can usually access the staff member. Again, you will enter 40 hours as a default setting for full-time. Enter the assignment start date of 10/1/2020, which is the start date the staff member will support the position, and no end date is recorded because we're not terminating anyone. At the bottom of the entry page, SAMIS offers an efficiency drop-down menu. From this drop-down, you can select Add Another Position. After clicking Save, the new entry page will be populated by SAMIS. Now we will enter the therapist performing the same steps as when we enter the senior program manager. The therapist is a full-time staff member with a 100% allocation to the program. Again, all fields that contain an asterisk are required to be filled out in SAMIS in order for the position to be saved. Select your agency. Enter the position title just as it appears on your approved budget and staffing chart. Please refrain from using all caps. Position titles must be capitalized. The category field is noted from the Scope of Works staffing chart. Please recall that paraprofessionals have an associate's degree or lower, and professionals have a bachelor's degree or higher. The expected number of hours defaults to 40. Because we are creating positions, until this position is closed, we will not be entering an end date. Let's assign the program support. From the drop-down, select the program. Enter the support start date, which also aligns with the contract start date of 10/1/2020. No support end date because we're not ending the position. The program allocation for the therapist in our sample budget is a full-time staff member to the agency and is 100% allocated to the program. enter 100, no percentage sign is needed. Finally, we will record the staff member's name if the staff member who fulfills the position is known at this time. Because we assume that you're building a new budget for the first time, let's go ahead and record your staff member into your member library. Please note under the staff member window, there is a green plus new staff member link. Once clicked, you can record the staff member who will be fulfilling the position. Our therapist is Mr. Kirk Dazos. Again, only the fields with an asterisk required to be filled out. We recommend that if you do not know the answers to the demographics captured here, you leave the fields blank and click Save. Once you save the staff member, SAMIS automatically takes you back to the entry page. Now that the staff member is recorded under your agency, you are able to assign the staff member to that position. You do that by clicking in the empty field and entering the first 3 letters of the name, K-I-R. Just by entering the first 3 letters, you can usually access the staff member. Once the name is recorded, enter the number of hours of 40 as a setting for full time. The assigned start date is the date in which the staff member will be filling this position. In our case, it will be 10/1/2020. No assignment end date is needed because we're recording our staff and not terminating their support. At the bottom of the entry page, SAMIS offers the efficiency drop-down menu. From this drop-down, you can select Add Another Position, and after clicking Save, the new entry page will be populated by SAMIS. Now let's enter the program assistant using the same steps. From the drop-down, select your agency. Enter the position title just as it appears on your approved budget and staffing chart. Please recall that paraprofessionals have an associate's degree or lower, and a professional has a bachelor's degree or higher. Please note that this particular position is a part-time position to the agency set at 30 hours per week. The expected number of hours for the program assistant is 30. The position start date should align with the contract date of 10/1/2020. Position end date will be left blank. We are not ending a position. We are actually building the position. Next, we will assign the program for which this position will support. The support start date, October 1st, 2020. No support end date is needed because we are building our budget. Please note that the program assistant in our sample budget is a part-time staff member to the agency who works 30 hours a week and is 100% allocated. Enter 100. No percentage sign is needed. Finally, we will record the staff member's name who fulfills this position if he or she is known at this time. Because Gary used to work for one of our other programs, I can easily recall his name and assign him to his new position. Clicking in the empty field staff, enter the first 3 letters of the name, G-A-R. Just by entering the first 3 letters, you can usually recall the staff member. Once the name is recorded, enter the number of hours of 30. Part-time is 30 hours in this case. The assignment start date is in the date that we will be fulfilling this position, 10/1/2020. No assignment end date is needed because we're building our budget. At the bottom of the entry page, SAMIS offers an efficiency drop-down menu. Because we no longer need to create positions, I will select Back to Position Summary. When I press Save, it populates a summary of all the positions I have created and are now assigned to support this program. Now that we have finished creating our positions, we will move on to step 2, defining fringe benefits starting on page 9 of our handout. While still here in the agency position summary, note the drop-down menu is available on the far left of the sub-navigation ribbon. From the drop-down, please select Budget Fringe Percentage. The Budget Fringe Percentage window offers 4 different fringe benefits: retirement, life and health, workers' compensation, and unemployment compensation. The fields in this page are already set to percentage mode, so no percentage sign will be needed when entering the rates being used. Our sample budget contains retirement benefits, but please note that the program assistant position does not receive this benefit. If your agency offers retirement and the retirement benefit is offered across all positions, we can enter a rate here. Because the program assistant does not receive the retirement benefit, we will not be entering a retirement rate in the fringe benefit window. When you use any of the fields for fringe benefits, the rate is calculated across 100% of gross payroll. So if you have a staff member that does not qualify for the benefit in your budget, you would not want to use this field. Life and health insurance is normally expressed as a monthly expense and not a rate of gross salary. Your budget has been approved using the per month cost. There are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, none of us will be using the life and health field on this page because we do not compute health cost as a percentage of salaries. Again, please note that all the rates entered in this window will be calculated across all gross salaries in your budget. With that being said, workers' compensation is a fringe benefit that is calculated across gross annual payroll. In our sample budget, workers' compensation has a rate of 0.5%. Therefore, in our fringe benefit page, we will enter the workers' comp rate of 0.5. Unemployment compensation is normally calculated based on the first $7,000 of gross income. SAMIS is currently not capable of performing the calculation for us. As said earlier, the rates used in this page are calculated over 100% of gross payroll dollars. There are a couple of exceptions to this scenario, but most likely we will not be using this field either. One last very important note to know about this page is that if no rates or rate is entered, once we populate our budget shell, you will not see or have a light blue calculate button. A question that is often asked is the rate for FICA. In SAMIS, your budget shell is formatted to calculate FICA automatically, and that's why you're not seeing the rate on this page, but it will be there for you once you get into the budget shell. If you're done entering the rates in the approved budget, click Save. Staying on this very same page, we're going back to the drop-down menu on the far left corner of the sub-navigation ribbon and choose the drop-down to our next step, assigning the match components, or funders. Creating the funders is step 3 of our process, and it starts on page 10 of our handout. The funders entry page, which is what we know as the match, at the bottom of our contract is default to look blank. Right below the contract number in the sub-navigation ribbon, click on New Program Funder. Select the fiscal year for the budget we are entering. Reflecting back on our training budget, our match consists of cash stipends paid that the agency pays to volunteer camp counselors. This is a cash match, therefore, from the drop-down menu, we will select Other Cash. In the Data Capture field, the radio button will always be default to the budget level. In the comment field below, just enter 2 or 3 words that would quickly capture the description of your match, which in this case happens to be stipends. The full match description will be recorded at the budget summary level. We have now completed step 1 through 3, in which we told SAMIS the attributes that we were going to need in our budget shell. Step 4, entering the budget, page 11 through 19 of the budget entry guidelines. If you're familiar with some of our SAMIS functions, the budget entry will feel very intuitive. Just like we start the reimbursement, just like we start a budget to actual, our request for the budget form follows the same process. From the Fiscal tab on the sub-navigation menu, drop down to My Approval queue. Click on the New Approval Request button. Select the correct fiscal year, which in our case is 2021. Select your program with the assigned contract number. Select the area, which would be budgets, and start request. Let's take a look at a few things. Please ensure that you're in the right fiscal year 2021. Please review your contract number. It must be the exact number that your program's manager assigned. The allocation in the budget form should match the allocation in SAMIS. If there is a variance, please contact your program's manager before proceeding. Notice how your login ID is identifying you as the creator, and the status of your budget is currently in edit mode. In the top portion, we find our entry for salary and fringe benefits. If you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see all of our expense accounts. At the very bottom of the form, it is important that you verify that your funder field is available. Click on the Summary Funders blue hyperlink. If this component is not here, please take a moment to assign the funder to your budget, that it starts on page 10 of our handout. Let's start by entering the salary and fringe benefits information. Click on the blue hyperlink for regular salary and wages. All your new positions should be listed here. Our first position is the Senior Program Manager. Click on the blue hyperlink for the Senior Program Manager. Take a moment to ensure that you're in the right position. The position ID and title can be seen right below the sub-navigation ribbon. As you can see, this is a full-time staff member set at 40 hours. 70% of his time is allocated to the program, and SAMIS automatically defaults the weeks funded to 52 weeks. As you scroll down, you will notice 3 columns. The first column is the gross column. Second, you have a program allocation column. And third is a CSC allocation column. The gross column is required to be filled out using the annualized cost stated in our budget. It is important that you fill out the gross column entirely before clicking on the Calculate button in the upper right-hand corner. Looking back at our sample budget, our Senior Program Manager has an annual salary of $50,000. Record $50,000 for his salary. As you can see, FICA is being automatically calculated in the gross column. His annualized retirement contribution is $2,500. His annualized life and health benefit is $4,800. Note that SAMIS has picked up the rate entered in our fringe benefits page of 0.5% in workers' comp. Because the rate is there, SAMIS will automatically calculate that expense when we click on the Calculate button. Moving down to our unemployment compensation, our Senior Program Manager has an annualized cost of $434. Now that the gross column has been entered, you want to go ahead and click on the blue Calculate button in the far right corner. Once clicked, you can see SAMIS has performed the 70% allocation assigned to this position to all annualized costs entered in the gross column. Before moving forward, take a moment to observe all the values populated by SAMIS and ensure that they match the values on your approved budget. Because we use rates such as FICA 7.65%, and like in our sample budget, workers' comp, a rate of 0.5%, you may experience rounding variances. Also note that the gross column total will not necessarily match the total in the program allocation and the CSC allocation column. The efficiency drop-down menu in the budget allows you to select your next position to record, which is the therapist. After selecting Go to Therapist, click on Save. Looking back at our sample budget, the therapist has an annual salary of $32,000 and is 100% allocated to our program. She earns $1,600 in retirement contributions annually, $4,800 in health benefits, workers' comp will be auto-populated, and SUTA is $434. Please take a moment to review that now you are on the therapist position page who works 40 hours a week and is 100% allocated to the program. Again, we will start by filling out the gross column with our annualized amounts noted in our budget. Because this is a full-time position 100% allocated to the program, when we click on the Calculate button, the program allocation column will equal the gross allocation column. Gross column first, $32,000 in salaries, $1,600 in retirement contributions, $4,800 in health benefits, workers' comp will be auto-populated, and SUTA is $434. Click on Calculate. Now we will copy our program allocation column onto the CSC allocation column. In this case, all three columns will match. If you're wondering how I'm moving my cursor swiftly from field to field, I am using the Tab button. From our Efficiency drop-down menu, we will now choose our last position to enter, the Program Assistant. Let's click Save, and let's go ahead and look back at the details in our approved budget for the third position. The Program Assistant has an annual salary of $28,600 and is 100% allocated to our program. No retirement contributions, $4,800 in health benefits, workers' comp will be auto-populated, and SUTA is $434. I verify that I'm in the right position. This program assistant works 30 hours a week for the agency and is 100% allocated to the program. Let's go ahead and enter the gross column first. Annual salary of $28,600, no retirement contributions, $4,800 in health benefits, workers' comp will be auto-populated, and SUTA is $434. Once we hit the Calculate button, because this position is 100% allocated to the program, the numbers will be the same in all three columns. Let's go ahead and fill out our third column. Once done, from the Efficiency drop-down menu, we will choose to go back to the budget summary. Now that we're in the budget summary page, we can ensure that our figures are exactly as stated in our approved budget. Please begin by looking at the total salary figure. Note that at the summary level, all three columns equal. If they equal, that's a good sign. But if they don't, let's go ahead and correct the error. Start by comparing the totals in the budget form and SAMIS. The total for salaries checks out, $95,600 in SAMIS and in the budget. Next is FICA. Aha! Because FICA has 2 decimal points, most likely you'll experience a variance due to rounding. Errors in this section not only happen due to rounding, but also because we could have transposed a number. Because we have identified that FICA has a rounding error, let's click on the blue hyperlink for FICA to review our entry. Review the first 2 columns. This will help you identify quickly if a number was transposed incorrectly. The columns must match in order for the budget to balance. And in this case, FICA is rounding up a whole dollar, and we can identify that from our budget detail. So we will deduct $1 from our senior program manager. If there's an error entry, then just fix the entry. But if it's a rounding issue, then always choose to adjust the highest salaried position on our budget. This will help you keep track of all rounding adjustments you may need to make. This is especially important for very large programs with hundreds of positions. Continuing with our review, we see that workers' comp and reemployment matches the figures in our budget. 478, 1,172. Lastly, our 3 columns match in total, and that's great. Again, troubleshoot each account by reviewing the rows. If any of the numbers are different, click on the respective hyperlink. Compare the first 2 columns to find your error. Click on the position in which you note the variance. Overall, you need to be 100% sure your entry in salary and fringe benefits is correct before you move on. Lastly, the details of our fringe benefits must be recorded under regular salary and wages. Click on the blue hyperlink for salary and wages and scroll down to the bottom. Here, you will find a comment box. In the box, record the rates and calculations used for fringe benefits. We ask that you keep this as simple as possible. In our sample budget, retirement is 5%, health benefits are $400 per month, workers' compensation carries a rate of 0.5%, and our reemployment compensation is 6.2 of the first $7,000. Click Save. If you are the reviewer in the budget workflow, this is one of the attributes that we ask you to review for. You should be able to see a blue note attached to regular salaries, which indicates the information has been recorded. When you hover over the blue note and click into it, you will see the details of the fringe benefits described here. Again, keep it simple. The program expenses come next. This starts on page 15 of the budget entry guidelines. Before you begin to record expenses, ensure that you have your electronic budget open so that you can use the copy-paste functions and create efficiencies for yourself. Let's enter our first expense, which is account 1300, contractual services, consultant and professional fees. Click on the blue hyperlink into that expense line item. By clicking on the blue hyperlink, you have now entered the entry page for the specific expense. It's always good to review the sub-navigation ribbon and ensure you've landed on the correct expense account. and I'm happy to say we have 1,300 contractual services. We will be recording the narrative or description of our program cost for all of our expenses in the narrative box. To do this, I click back onto my Excel budget and click on cell E48 where the description of program cost is found. Control C is a command in Excel that allows you to copy the content of a cell. Getting back to SAMIS, I place my cursor in the narrative box and I use the command Control V as in Victor to paste the description. The light blue box below provides instructions on the entry field directly below it. This field can perform formulas and no equal sign is needed. Using our sample budget to demonstrate, I entered $25 for dollars an hour and 230 hours. I do not need to press enter. SAMIS automatically performs the calculation and populates the result in the amounts funded by CSC and in the other output cells. Or you can simply choose to perform a hard code entry of $6,250. The efficiency drop-down menu in this module allows you to select your next expense account. After saving Go To, and our next expense account is 1,600, expenses and supplies. Click Save. Let's review that we are in the correct expense account, 1,600, expenses and supplies. Referring back to our approved budget, we copy our description of program cost. Click back into SAMIS and paste. Enter 1,842 to record the allocation of the expense. From the efficiency drop-down menu, we choose our next expense, which is 8010, Flex Funds. Again, ensure we are in the right expense account. I click back onto my approved budget, copy the Flex Funds description of program cost, get back into SAMIS, and paste it into my narrative. I enter $4,000 for the allocation. I then drop down to our next expense, 8020, value added. I ensure I'm in the right account, 8020 value added. Back to my budget, copy the description of program cost, paste it into the narrative box, hardcode entry 3,400, and select our next expense from the drop-down menu, 8,900, administrative cost. Click Save. We are now in 8,900. Again, back to our approved budget form. Copy the description of the program cost for administrative expense. Checking it back into our narrative box, enter the allocation in the empty field, which is 13,635. And since we have no other expense line items to record, I will select back to summary page from the drop-down. Now, back at the summary level, we can see that our salaries account equal in all three columns, and that we have a blue note that records the details of fringe benefits. Scrolling down to our expense accounts, reviewers, again, please ensure that any expense account that has received an allocation also has a blue note attached that explains the method of calculation for that expense line item. Continue to scroll down to the bottom of the form and review your expenses total in all three columns. It must match. And if that worked out, then our total budget should show $150,000. Last but not least, we will enter the match of our budget. Click on the blue hyperlink that reads Available Summary Funders. If the blue hyperlink is not found, it sounds like you skipped step 3 of our budget entry. Please refer back to page 10 on our handout. If your funders are there, you should see either cash, in-kind, or both, depending on what your agency offered. Again, by clicking back on your Excel approved budget, we use the copy-paste to copy the match components. Getting back to SAMIS, we recorded. If you have both different types of match, please record in their respective entry cells. We have stipends paid to volunteers. Record the amount of $7,500. Looks good. Click Save. Voila! Budget entry is complete. Now that it's saved, let's give it one last glance and ensure I've entered the budget for the correct fiscal year under the correct contract number and with the proper allocation. As you can see, my budget is still in edit mode. As I scroll down, I ensure that I have a blue note attached to my regular salary and wages to describe my fringe benefits, and a blue note is attached to all expense line items that have been allocated funding. As I scroll down to the bottom, I ensure that the match has been recorded, and now I have a forward button. This forward button will forward the budget to the next person in your workflow. The person could be a reviewer or simply the submitter. For the purpose of this demonstration, I will now play the reviewer role. Sitting in my approval queue, the budget awaits my comprehensive review. By clicking on the blue hyperlink, I enter the budget form. Please proceed to perform a review to ensure that all necessary attributes are encompassed by your budget. If you scroll down to the bottom and there is another person on your workflow, you will see a forward button. But if there's no other person on your workflow, you will find a submit button. Until this point, the budget is still in edit mode with your agency. Once you hit the submit button, it goes to CSC for review and approval. To find your budget at any point after it's been submitted to CSC, go to your program splash page. Make sure you select the right fiscal year. Find the budget link under Fiscal Requests. Now in the budget, click the Audit Trail button. Here, you're able to see your budget moving through the CSC workflow. If at any point you have any questions about your budget, please reach out to your contract manager. The budget will be going through our internal review process in the next few weeks. Once approved, you will see the Submitted button become a green Approved button. Once the budget has been approved, the only changes that could be made will be through an amendment. If you have any questions or need additional clarifications on the budget entry process, please contact your programs manager or your compliance accounting manager at CSC. Thank you so much for dedicating the time to review this video, and we hope that you have found it helpful. Have a great day. This recording will now come to an end.